Hi, folks. We're continuing with Christian history today. I'm going to try really hard to talk so you can understand me. That's my goal. Let's see how it goes. On your mark, set, go. There you go. Separate from ecclesiastical officers was another group who provided educational and social services and encouraged certain ascetic and personal expressions of Christian piety.
These were the orders of monks and nuns whose lives were regulated by their respective orders and who took upon themselves formal vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Medieval monasticism had evolved through a long history beginning in the 3rd century with early hermits like St. Anthony who took literally Christ's injunction. To the rich young man to go and sell that thou hast and give to the poor, Matthew chapter 19, verse 21. Later monks lived communally in monasteries under strict rules, attempting to live in the world but not be of it. While the conversion of kings and rulers was often responsible for the conversion of the entire populace residing within their political entities, it was the monks and nuns who were responsible for the actual teaching and ministering required to truly convert the people, the masses.
So this is where you can really see the three levels of the church. You've got the people ministered to by the monks and nuns. You got the bishops and the archbishops, and then you've got the pope at the top. And they'd have very little interaction with each other.
Whether they were women or men, monastics were the most common agents of evangelization among the peoples of the West in the 7th through the 10th centuries. Monasteries were mission stations that brought the church close to people's lives. Monastery chapels were often the place people went to worship and receive the sacraments. Monks and nuns provided education along with Christian teaching to the people of the countryside, modeling Christian moral life for the rest of the community. As holy people, they were in effect called upon to replace traditional religions and handle the day-to-day problems in people's lives.
So we see here, especially from the 7th to the 10th century, the powerful influence the monks and nuns had on the people. They were good people, they were righteous people, and they led people to Christ.
Monastic history.
Movement can actually be found back in ancient Judaism, even before Jesus. The Pharisees, whom we all know from the Gospels, are very much, in many ways, very much like the religious orders in the Catholic Church. And we had the Essenes, who had their community at the Dead Sea, who left us the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were a very monastic character, and these groups are seeking God in a certain way. But the Christian monastic movement, I would say we also see roots for that in the scriptures, where Christians are supposed to fast and seek God and seek peace and pray. Pray always, St. Paul says and Jesus says, and that's what monks are supposed to do too. But the formal monastic movement in Christianity really took off in the 4th century. There was, at that time, an openness to Christianity then in the Roman Empire, which had previously been an illegal religion and suffered persecutions. But it eventually became a socially right thing to do. Everybody's becoming Christian. And so the moral life of Christians became lax. And the purists among them, the diehards, wanted something more rigorous. So the monastic life, where you go out into the desert and live simply and really seek purity, became a strong movement, particularly in Egypt. And Egypt became the place of repute for the strongest monks. And that's where John Cassian relearned monasticism and brought it to the West. And St. Benedict then refers to John Cassian's institutes and conferences in his rule. And of course, St. Benedict's rule became predominant in the West during the Middle Ages and has been so ever since.
So the origins of monasticism are there. It's too complex to go into the whole thing, but Saint Benedict is, when he comes along, we think of him as the origin of monasticism, but monasticism has been several centuries in the making. When he comes along and draws from many traditions and forms a way of life for monks to live together. He represents a sort of, oh, he didn't intend to do this, I don't think, but it turns out to be a sort of ingenious synthesis of the previous centuries. And as such, then, it becomes, for subsequent centuries in Western Europe, it becomes the premier form of monasticism, just because he got so much wisdom in his rule, which reaches back to those early centuries of monasticism, but focused it for the new situation in which he found himself in his day. In the centuries following Saint Benedict, and especially from the 9th century on, Benedictine monasteries began to be established throughout Europe, and were, as I said earlier, were considered a blessing virtually everywhere they showed up.
So, monasticism wasn't really a curse, it was a blessing to the people. Pause button.